Hey, it's GT again coming at you from the Vibe Podcast in the great city of Wichita, Kansas, here in the middle of nowhere. It was like 65 degrees outside in the wintertime, so we're going to take that. Real quick, if it comes to my mind, I'm going to talk about it. So, what I'm going to talk about today, quick 15 minutes, is accepting your partner for who they are. Accepting them for who they are, not who you want them to be. So first thing I'm talking about is how to build. So the objective here is to understand what it takes to build the partnership within your relationship. A quote from a buddy of mine, he said, it's common for partners to have differing opinions, values, and habits that can lead to conflict and tension in a relationship. When we learn to accept and love our partners for who they are, their flaws and all, we can build a stronger and more fulfilling relationship and connection with that person. And so I think that the baseline here is understanding who they are as a person at their core values or core beliefs. What it is that drives them, what it is that motivates them, what it is that keeps them going. I think that you have to have a good understanding of what that is. And then I think once you understand what that is, you get a decision to make on if that's something that you're going to be ready to rock with, if you're not going to be ready to rock with it. So I think that this accepting your partner for who they are is the first key to emotional safety, right? So as you create the environment for your partner to be able to communicate with you in a way that you probably like to be communicated with, the environment has to be conducive to them feeling like they can be themselves. Because at the end of the day, if they feel like they have to try to be somebody else, you're not going to get the authentic communication that I've talked about in prior podcasts, right? And I'm big on authentic communication. That is the communication in which that person is 100% coming from themselves. They're not trying to create an image or project something upon you. They're just coming 100% on how they feel and what they're feeling. So you build emotional trust, right? So as you begin to create the environment for your partner to feel like they can be themselves, then you start to build emotional trust. And emotional trust is when somebody can give you some of the things that are deep within them, right? It may be a core value, it may be morals, it may be something that they feel, but they're able to hand that to you and trust that there won't be judgment cast down upon them because they're giving that to you, right? So it has to be a listening environment for sure. Then you can help build emotional strength. So as they start to give you these pieces of them that you probably never got to see before, then you get to build emotional strength within the relationship and within yourself and your partner. And so you become emotionally strong enough to where a person feels like they can tell you what they feel without any consequences or repercussions behind that, right? And it could be, it can range from anything. It could be from, I feel this way when you do this. Or it can be, a lot of times I know counselors like to use the I feel statements. So I've kind of taken that upon myself as I've been going to counseling for a while now. But it could be a range of things. So you're just creating the ability for them to be emotionally strong. So they can be the strongest version of themselves. Not the strongest version of who you want them to be or who somebody else wants them to be. They can just be comfortable in their own skin being whoever it is that they are. So as you create the atmosphere of emotional safety, you start to build emotional trust, and you start to build emotional strength, then what happens is you've created an atmosphere that is conducive to growth. So now your partner feels like they can grow within the relationship individually. And I think that growth is an individual thing, and it starts individually before it can become communal. And so as you create an atmosphere for your partner to be able to grow, then you'll notice that you'll get the best version of them. Right. But that all starts with those keys: emotional safety, emotional trust, and emotional strength. So you have to provide that into the environment and create that environment where it's like they can come to you with damn near anything and it's okay. Where they feel like they don't have to hide who they really are from you because they're afraid of whatever consequences or repercussions may come behind that. And so understand that as you grow, there's future growth too. And so sometimes those things change. So over time, people learn about themselves. They say when you hit your mid to late 30s, that's when you kind of figure things out. I'm 34, so I'm in the midst of figuring things out, is what they say, but I'm still trying to figure things out. And so understanding future growth is important when it comes to a relationship and being able to create the environment where, or the atmosphere where somebody feels like they can grow, right? And you're not going to be the same tomorrow as you are today. So as these 24 hours pass along and you move on to the next step, then you have to understand that your partner is not going to be the same. That there will be emotional changes. There will be, if you're in the church, spiritual changes as you grow spiritually. There will also be changes out in the community as well as you kind of get around other people. So you get to spend time with different people from different walks of life, and you take wisdom that's imparted on you, and that kind of changes how you operate. And so I think that partners have to understand is that whenever even job changes, if you go from a job where you're at a desk 24/7 at your job, and then you go out to another job where you're out in the community, that's probably going to change you a little bit because you're going to be around people that you weren't around before. You may have been an introvert then. Now you've started to become an extrovert because you're out and about. So even subtle changes in characteristics also matter. But it all leads back to the root where you have to provide the atmosphere where somebody feels like they can be emotionally strong, where they can where they can trust you with their emotions, and then that creates emotional safety. And then when you have an atmosphere that has those pieces, then you are conducive to growth. And I think that like I said, in relationships, the relationship grows as the individuals in the relationship grow. And you can't ever separate the relationship from the two individuals, right? And so those are some things that you can do as far as it comes from an emotional standpoint. Accepting your partner for who they are is to understand who they are. You have to, like I said, create the atmosphere that is conducive for a person to be able to be emotionally open with you. And what that takes is a couple things that people do. Let me just tell you a couple things people do. One is people have an expectation of you. And sometimes the expectation that they have of you gets in the way of them being able to view you as you are today. Sometimes people will judge you based on how you feel emotionally or how you feel about things or differences in a relationship. And that also can cause friction, and that can cause a person to not want to be emotionally open, because when you're judging people, that doesn't create the safe environment that I'm talking about. So a safe environment in a relationship is conducive to growth, is an environment that does not cast judgment up on the partner for however they feel. So as we kind of roll through that piece and we go on to the next piece, so you have those things that work, right? We know these things work. We know that these things are good. But then there's the other piece. You find out later on in the relationship who the person is, or maybe you knew who the person was the whole time and you chose to have a relationship with this person. So now you're here and you're at this moment where now you're going to make a decision. And so I'm going to go through the decision. That's what I wrote down on my notes. It's called the decision. So I think number one, you have to understand who you are. If you don't understand who you are as a person, it's kind of hard to get a gauge for somebody else. And I think that that's the key piece that a lot of people are missing out here, is that they don't understand who they are personally, and they're not honest with themselves about who they are. And so if you can't be honest with yourself about who you are, you can't expect somebody to be honest with you about who they are too. So I think honesty within yourself is a key element to being able to provide those things, but it's also a key element into being able to make a decision if a decision needs to be made, right? So we're talking about if you've gone through all these levels, you've gone to counseling, you've done all the things that you're supposed to do, you put all the work in, but now you're in a position where you feel like, okay, who this person is, I don't think that that's going to work for me. And so that's where I'm at when I say make the decision. But in order for you to make the decision, like I said, you have to know who you are, and you have to be honest with who you are as a person. And it takes a lot. A lot of people can't really be honest with themselves. It's easy to point out other people's flaws, but it's kind of hard to point out your own flaws and be able to make decisions based on your flaws or however you see yourself. Some people will see themselves fairly harsh. Some people won't see themselves harsh at all. Some people may say that they see themselves not harsh, but they see themselves harsh. And then some people will say, I see myself harsh as heck, but when you really actually look down and get to the meat and potatoes of it, they're really not that hard on themselves as they may say. So like I said, it's about being honest with yourself. If you can't be honest with yourself, you damn sure can't be honest with anybody else out here. And so I think that's where it starts. And then a quote that I saw the other day is you accept a person for how you found them, not how you want them to be. So however you found that person, that's who that person is. You can't put up a goalpost. You can't set a finish line and say, I want you to be this. And then you're staring at the finish line and thinking, okay, this person's going to eventually get there. I think that you must come to the reality that that person is who they are. And listen, because people will tell you who they are all the time. And sometimes we overlook some of the key things that people tell us. And so we're looking beyond that. Men, we look at beauty. So we'll be looking at a beautiful woman and she will be showing us who she is, but we're not seeing it because we're too busy looking at beauty. So sometimes you have to go beyond what's on the outside to figure out what's going on the inside. And so when he says accepting a person for how you found them, that literally means that that person is exactly what they say they are, and they're exactly what you see them as, right? Now, could you be wrong about how you see somebody? Absolutely, positively, yes, you can. But it still has the reminder to go back to step one, and that's you understanding yourself. And I think that if people were to focus more on themselves and understanding themselves and being honest with themselves, it would help in the relationship aspect, because now that you're honest with you, it's easier for you to be honest with your partner. If you can't be honest with yourself, you can't really be honest with your partner. And then if you're single out there and you're looking for a partner and you're not even honest with yourself, you're going to be out there looking for whatever or taking whatever. And so I think that people have to take responsibility for themselves, but they also have to look in the mirror, because you look in the mirror first and then you look around you. That's something my mom always told me, is look in the mirror first before you look all around you. And so as I kind of conclude this little 10 to 15 minute episode, I'll go back through the things that we talked about. So emotional safety, right, that's an environment. Emotional safety is an environment that is created through your partner being able to express themselves for who they are with no judgment. So that builds the trust, emotional strength, and that leads to emotional safety in a relationship. And when you have those pieces, those are the ingredients for individual growth. So a person can grow and a person can be taught, because when you think about it like this, if a person emotionally trusts you and they are strong and they feel safe in a relationship, you can help them grow. You can't help a person grow if they don't feel those things, because at the end of the day, how a person feels and what they feel about themselves, they call that dignity. And that's always the last piece to go. So you can strip a man of everything, and that'll be the last piece right there. And if you strip a man of that, then they have nothing left. And that's something I learned in the line of work that I do, being professional and treating people like you want to be treated. Because at the end of the day, sometimes when we're out here and we're working, the dignity is the last piece. That's the last little sliver of anything that these people have left. And so I understand how valuable that piece is. And so as I talk about the emotional trust and safety and strength and growing in a relationship and talking about dignity and how that's the last piece, that is it for most people. And so we have to understand that we have to be gentle, kind, and understanding. And I think a lack of understanding can lead to a lot of problems. And so I implore people out here, as you're in relationships and you're communicating with your significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you guys want to call it, spouse, that you come into it with the mindset of, I'm trying to create a safe environment for us to grow together. And in order for me to do that, I have to do these things. Not my partner has to do these things, but I have to do these things. So you start with the I statement, and then you do what you got to do. And then that's what kind of gets the wheels on the train going. Because as of now, as far as our culture goes, our culture is a very me-centric culture, to where it's me, I want this, I want that, I expect this, I expect that. And it takes away from the I'm going to do this because this is the right thing to do, or this is for the betterment of the people that are around me. And so, as I've said in previous podcasts, being selfless is the key. That is one of the keys toward having healthy relationships, whether it's friendships, partnerships, relationships with significant others, whether it's parents, being in relationships with your kids, having relationships with your kids. Being selfless is the key. Being able to put, because to me, the meaning and the number one thing about a relationship is a person's ability to not put themselves first, but to put somebody else first. And so when you look at those values, I think those are doable. Now, sometimes you got to make a decision, and that's the reason why I came up with that piece at the end, the decision, is that sometimes when you've realized that somebody is who they are and that you are who you are, it just may not work out, and that's okay. Not everybody's compatible, and not everybody's going to work out together, and so we have to also make those decisions too. But the goal is to make things work when you have them. Last quote I'm going to give you guys before I get out of here. You don't want to lose something and then wind up chasing it for the rest of your life, right? So sometimes people will give up on a relationship and then they'll be chasing the relationship that they just had. And so I implore you guys to work on some of these things, try some of these things out. Remember that emotional safety, trust, and strength in the growth of the relationship starts with one person taking a stand and doing something about it. Our next podcast will drop in a couple days. We got a special guest coming on tomorrow morning. We're going to be talking about communication and ways to communicate. And the title of that podcast is Authentic Communication. Not just communication, but authentic. Being yourself. The goal for us on our podcast is for people to be themselves so that they can grow together. Because I feel like if you're being something else and you're trying to get to a certain level, or you're trying to accomplish a certain goal, or you're trying to be who somebody else wants you to be, that impacts your growth and impairs your growth. And so what we are going to try to do here on the Vibe Podcast is give people the tools that it takes to be able to find their identity and then start to grow. So that's the key, guys. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow morning. We'll have a special guest on with us, Ms. Taylor, and we're going to talk about authentic communication. So we look forward to seeing you guys soon. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and we'll check to you guys later.